Welcome to your monthly market review. I'm your host, Nick Rower, joined today by CLS Investments Chief Investment Officer, Rusty Vanneman. Rusty, welcome.
Thanks, Nick.
So the market obviously has been a little quiet this year. Tell us about some of the interesting things that are happening.
Yeah. Well, the market has been kind of quiet this year when you look at just overall price volatility. It's been kind of quiet. But, there have been a couple of really interesting developments, I think, in the marketplace. I mean, first, when we look at the market, even though the market's been moving steadily higher in prices, we've seen this big difference between large companies and small companies. That's really interesting because usually when you get a market that's moving higher, smaller companies outperform. Not the case this year. Larger companies are outperforming by quite a bit. And that's been good for CLS investors because we've been emphasizing larger companies. So that's been a good thing. I think the second thing which is really, really interesting this year is when you break down the international markets. Emerging markets have really trailed the last couple of years. Not the case this year. Emerging markets are doing great. It's the developed markets, which did better in the international space last year, which are lagging. So we've kind of seen that difference there. And that's been good for CLS investors too, because we did not abandon emerging markets this year. I think we saw a lot of flows going out of that space earlier this year. We didn't abandon it. If anything, we were buying more. And we're still buying international markets, both developed and emerging markets.
Well, that sounds great. It sounds like your forecasting department is doing their job.
Yeah, so far so good.
Tell us about some of the other changes in the CLS portfolios.
Well, I really go back to that last point. That is the big change in the portfolios is international. We really like international right now. Okay. I would anticipate that we're going to be increasing our positions even quite a bit into year end this year. Valuations look good. We think that we're getting price confirmation in some of those markets right now, particularly the emerging markets. So I think that's really the big change. Again, this is different than what we're seeing in the marketplace. A lot of investors right now are not looking at international. We're not that way. We're looking at international. We like international. We think it has better expected returns than domestic markets. So that's the change we're looking at.
Well, it sounds like we're in good hands. Anything else that you might want to bring up, changes in CLS?
We have a lot of stuff going on at CLS right now. But one thing I'd like to point out right now is particularly on our side, risk budgeting is how we put together portfolios. That's our methodology. That's really our philosophy. It's really our process, how we put everything together. We're making a really important change in risk budgeting this quarter. We're going to update our white paper and tell everybody about it. For the most part, it's the same as it always has been, but there's one twist to it which is different, and that is we're bringing in sort of this adjustment for liquidity, how liquid or illiquid an asset class is, and that adjustment we're going to kind of bake into the formula. And kind of in theory, what should happen is that we should have better performance out of our portfolios during down markets. I mean, that's kind of the long and short of it. For a lot more detail,